737 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Want to get right to the Newsmaker Hotline. Check in with Congressman Scott DesJarlais. And Congressman, there's so many things I want to talk about with you. Let's dive right into it. A couple of things real quick. People want to know what I thought about Dana Bash and Jake Tapper. By and large, I don't have an issue with them. I think that they allowed Joe Biden to do what he did last night. I think that there's a number of things going on sort of within the Democrat Party, Congressman. Number one is, part of the conversation has been, I don't remember if you and I talked about this, but this was the Democrats basically putting Joe Biden up there to fail, some will say, so that they could try to change him out. What are people in, your circles saying about the debate last night?
I haven't talked to a lot of folks yet. I will later this morning, but I think you and I did discuss this maybe even yesterday. I think you brought up the fact that is this test run for Joe to see if he can perform, and clearly we got our answer. This man couldn't lead a one-man band down a deserted street, and everyone saw it, and people could say, well, he had a bad night, he had a cold, but coupled with all the gaps that we've been seeing over the past year, I think anybody watching, looking at it objectively, now knows the answer that he is in mental decline and he's not capable of leading the country. So, yes, I think that that is a real possibility. I don't know the legal way to do that when states have already voted for him. They say, oh, we don't like our guy anymore, we're going to change him. I would question whether we'll ever see another debate. There's one was in September. I don't think you'll see a Trump-Biden debate. If they put up another candidate, would Trump debate them being their second or third string? Because it's not going to be Kamala. So, what would be the advantage for Trump to debate some new person that they managed to put in?
Let me ask you, Congressman, because I think that you had some people that are out there, Joe Scarborough, for example, saying that the Democrat Party is not panicking. I think it is clear that they are. And part of the dynamic, though, is this is the same Joe Biden that you and I and conservatives have been talking about for the last year. This did not necessarily come as a big surprise. I'm surprised if someone is surprised at how Joe Biden fared last night, because there's nothing new here. He has been shanking his words and shanking his ideas and shanking his sentences for at least a year.
Yeah, but the liberal media has been covering up. We talk about it on Super Talk. They talk about it on Fox News. So all the conservatives that are pro-Trump have been talking about it. But this is the first time that's going to force Democrats to talk about it. So I can understand the panic, because they've been misled for the past year. They said, the Republicans are calling cheap fakes and whatnot. Well, this guy, I figured he would stumble last night. I figured he'd freeze up. I fully expected him to do that. I figured he'd jumble his words. I just didn't expect him to do it for 90 minutes. The guy never got out of the gate. And, it was a real opportunity for Trump. I think Trump, clearly the winner of the debate was Donald Trump. There's no question about that. Nobody who watched it objectively, even if you don't like Donald Trump, couldn't say that he won.
Oh, I don't know, Congressman. There's 33% out there, according to CNN, that is saying that Joe Biden won. Clearly, those are the Trump derangement syndrome people.
Right. And so if somebody had to go to the polls, if the election were held next week, Donald Trump would win hands down. So where do we go from here as Republicans? How do we focus on message discipline? You'd mentioned the moderators, and that was a big concern of mine. I do think that they were fairer than I expected. I think they bailed Biden out a couple of times when he was stumbling and bumbling. I couldn't see the timers. I don't know how much time he had left, but if there was time left and they didn't get their question answered, they would remind the candidate. But when Biden was clearly in a pickle a couple of times, they shifted to Trump. And to Trump's credit, he didn't take the bait on the climate change, or are you a climate denier? He went ahead and finished up with his own messaging, and he ignored their questions a few times, and that may bother some people. But that's smart debating, because they were trying to lead him down a different rabbit hole, and he didn't take the bait. I think he had a real opportunity on message discipline to talk about. It's good that he talked about what he did and what he accomplished and how things were. I think it's good to point out that Biden has done a terrible job, but then also I think we need to see more of a message for what message discipline in terms of what he's going to do going forward in his next 4 years. I think there was a little bit of a lost opportunity last night where he obviously had an inferior opponent, and instead of wasting time attacking him, he just needed to go ahead and be the strong one. I think he did a good job. he was set up to fail in that environment. He didn't have a crowd. He had unfriendly moderators, and he was not in his element. But I think he did a great job and clearly won.
He was disciplined. I will say that by and large, he was disciplined. Let me ask you, because I mentioned this in the 5 and in part of the 6, but I'll go ahead and ask you this: is there a danger now with, and you mentioned, and I don't necessarily know the legalese regarding the Democrats switching out their candidate at this point. But is there a danger that the Democrats may put in a Gavin Newsom or a Wes Moore or whoever it might be, and now we are having Donald Trump face a more formidable opponent? Because everywhere you look, you do have many in the Democrat Party, including New York Times and Washington Post, all saying that Joe Biden must step down. If Biden does, they got to figure out what to do with Kamala Harris. But there might be some legal maneuverings here where they can somehow insert a Wes Moore or a Gavin Newsom. And then you do have former President Donald Trump with a more formidable opponent. Do you see that as a concern?
Well, I see it. If we have the right strategist running Donald Trump's campaign, I don't think it's as big a problem because we're pretty late in the game here, not too far from the election. It's going to take them a little while to maneuver this if they can do it and put in a new candidate. And when you're having to go deep into your bench to try to pull out somebody to say, this is our guy now, Donald Trump just needs to be Donald Trump and talk about what he's going to do. Well, they're clearly in a weak position. So that's why I say I don't know that we'd see another debate in October if they're saying, why won't President Trump debate Gavin Newsom? Say, well, this isn't even a legitimate nominee. This is just somebody you picked. And so I think that, there certainly could be some concerns, but I think if Trump plays his card right, he's in the driver's seat. And I'm not saying he goes in the basement like Biden did last time around, but I also think he doesn't have to acknowledge somebody that they just randomly pull out of their hat and say, this is our nominee.
7:45 on Super Talk 99.7. Congressman Scott DesJarlais joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. And so, Congressman, I guess the next question is, we've got several months between now and November. How do the Democrats, if Joe Biden does remain the nominee, and I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen, but if Biden does remain the nominee because the Democrats just have nowhere to go, they've got Kamala Harris as the number 2. Nobody wants her. They are just in a real bind. What do the Democrats do moving forward?
I mean, they're in a tough spot, honestly. There's Democrats that are not going to vote for Donald Trump, and there's Republicans that are not going to vote for anybody but Donald Trump. So last night was really about those undecideds. It's a close race, 45-45 in the polling. So, let's say there's 10% of the people out there that are trying to decide who they're going to vote for. I'd be pretty hard-pressed to watch that debate and that performance and say I'm either going to not vote at all if I can't vote for Donald Trump, or if I'm undecided, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, because there's only one person on that stage that looked capable of leading. And Donald Trump had a pretty good message discipline on the border, which is a bigger issue than the moderators wanted to make it. Certainly the economy, people know they were doing better under Trump than they are now under Biden, so he's winning on that issue. Crime, whatnot, the felony counts against Trump, I think they fell on deaf ears. Everyone kind of sees that for what it was. Joe tried to take a shot at him. And frankly, Biden was the immature one last night in terms of his little jabs and jibes. It looked like playground banter. It was actually kind of embarrassing because, I think most Americans tuned in wanting to see which president has a vision for the next 4 years. Instead, we saw a lot of back and forth bickering. But for the Democrats, again, I think that they knew they were in a tough spot. That's the reason probably Biden chose to debate, or your theory that they were going to put Biden out there and say, hey, we got to make a change or we're dead in the water. And so that they're at that moment right now. They've got to decide what to do. And I'd rather be a Republican and be Trump than be in the position they are right now.
So you're a medical doctor. You and I were talking yesterday about what they could give Joe Biden to get him through the 90 minutes. I don't know if he was on anything, but whatever it wasn't the right mix. Your thoughts on on whether or not Biden was on anything? Clearly, they're saying that he was sick. It doesn't matter. I mean, he wasn't able to perform. Did you think he was actually on anything?
It looked like, maybe Ambien. Or some other kind of sleeping aid. We talked about Provigil or something that kind of, a stimulant of some sort. it sure didn't look like he was. And cold or not, you can perform. Athletes perform when they're sick and all that. So, I mean, they can try to use that excuse as pretty lame, but no, he didn't seem to be on any medication at all. And maybe they were so afraid of the attacks that preempted the debate that they just said go out there and do what you do. Or again, maybe the Democrats wanted the world to see the real Joe so they can take care of the problem or try to.
So what's next for the country? I mean, you're talking about, again, another, 3-4 months, whatever it is, until Election Day. It's clear that Joe Biden is not going to win the election. The Democrats are in a state of peril. And so what do the Democrats do? You're a member of the House. So what's going to happen legislatively for the next 4 or 5 months? What do you think?
Yeah, there's not going to be much going on. We're doing appropriation bills. We're going to go vote here in about an hour on 3 of the 12 appropriation bills, or 11. And, we're going to, come up with some type of a Republican budget plan that the Democrats will probably reject. The Senate probably won't take it up. We're probably going to end up with a continuing resolution. But legislatively, you're not going to see a whole lot. Now, as Republicans, we can do messaging bills, and, we really should unite and have some strong border security initiatives. We've already done that, but I think it wouldn't hurt to do it again. We could do some economic plans, but we can basically do messaging bills. The Democrats aren't going to help us with anything. If we can unite these next few months as Republicans, there's not a lot of legislative weeks left between now and the election. I think it's something like 6 legislative weeks. So, we just need to be very strong in our messaging and our vision for the country. I think we have the right vision. We have the winning strategy. There's a lot of problems all Americans know we're facing, and Biden certainly didn't give any solutions to those. Trump did. And, let's see what goes on in the world. It's 4 months, like you said, that's an eternity in an election cycle. So, I mean, is there a new war that pops up? Is there something else, some other crisis that muddies the water? But right now,
Congressman, if I may, you bring up a great point, which is America saw that debate. The world saw that debate. And so does Joe Biden's debate performance put us more at risk on the world stage?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's what does the world do with that? I mean, they know right now, looking at that they're probably getting 4 more years of Donald Trump. And I think China is more fearful and respectful of Trump. I think Putin and Russia, despite what the liberal media tries to spin, North Korea, all those different countries, I think, know that our military and our posture will be much tougher under Donald Trump. So I don't know what they try to do. It'll be interesting. But like I said, I expected that Trump would prevail last night. I did not expect that Biden would totally be a no-show. And so, we're the morning after. The news cycle changes rapidly. So I don't want to knee-jerk, but I feel better about our chances now than I did when we talked yesterday morning.